Hello, everybody. It is 6:02 p.m. on Monday, September 8th, 2025. You are now in the Portland, Maine Board of Education Finance, Personnel, and Operations Committee. Welcome. My name is Sarah Bryden. I am the chair of the committee. I am joined here by Board Member Opperman, also a member of the committee. Let's see, we also have with us Superintendent Dr. Ryan Scallon. We have, let's see, Ben Lasvoy, Director of Transportation. We have Lisa Beck, Director of Finance. And we have Jennifer Slaybank, Director of HR. And we have Heather Peters, Director of Accounting also. I hope I got all those titles right on the fly. And we have a great conversation ahead of us. First, let's see, I am going to check and see if we have any attendees who might want to give public comment. I'm seeing 0 attendees, so I'm going to close public comment without reading those policies and rules because nobody can possibly raise a Zoom hand. So we will move directly to a quick overview of our agenda. So this evening we are going to be talking about, talking about transportation, getting an update from Ben about that. We're going to be getting a finance update from Lisa. Let's see, discussion of a few of our board policies that are relevant to this committee. And then we're also going to get a human resources presentation from Jennifer. If there are no questions, comments, or concerns, I will turn it over to Dr. Scallon to run us through that agenda.
Yeah, thank you. That was perfect. I'm actually, just for time's sake, going to turn it over to Ben, who is our Director of Transportation. And one of the initiatives that we have this year is looking at our transportation systems and seeing what, if anything, we should adjust, and thinking that is a broad umbrella from transportation routes to partnerships to hazard zones, crossing guards, any and all of the above. And so this is an initial preview and conversation with the committee, recognizing that this is work that will happen throughout the year. And so if you can give me 1 second, I'm going to pull up the shared screen, and then Ben, feel free to jump in as soon as you see it.
All right, so good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me fine? Yeah, okay, great. So we started the year off strong, staffing-wise. We currently only have 2 open positions available, 1 school year bus driver and 1 school year van driver. Hoping to fill the van driver position here very soon. We may need to add more bus assistants to our staff, which we've found through bringing all the out-of-district schools back into taking them away from contractors and running them in-house. So the number of staff that we need to support those special ed students will likely increase. Our partnership with Portland Adult Ed has given us 3 drivers, 1 who is licensed right now, 2 that are going for their tests this week. So that is very exciting. And the increase in the van driver positions that we had last year enabled us to bring all of our out-of-district programming in-house, saving us about $10,000 a week. So that's a huge one for us. Next one there, Ryan. So technology-wise, it seems like families are really enjoying the My Ride app so far. As of today, we have about 451 families that have signed up for it. We have instructions to log on to the app in Spanish, French, and English. So if we need to get those out to any of the schools, we could do that. But it seems very user-friendly, and a lot of the families are already using it. We started using scan cards for kindergarten and pre-K students this year. That is working excellent. All the students are getting home safely each and every day, so that's a huge plus. Bus schedules went out to families on August 18th. That was a week before we sent them out last year. So a step ahead, which gave us the opportunity to make a lot of adjustments before school started, requests from parents and things like that. And since school started, we've received an additional 200 transportation requests in the first week of school. We're trying to get through them as quickly as possible. Lots of them are special ed requests and McKinney-Vento requests, so they aren't quick and easy. There's a lot of individual plans associated with them, but we're trying to dig through them as quickly as we can. Next, Ryan. All right, so here is what Ryan was talking, or Dr. Scallon was talking about with regards to our multi-year transportation plan. So Strategic Initiative 5.4 is focused on transportation. By the end of the 25-26 school year, we're hoping to have developed a plan that can obtain board approval through updated transportation strategy and policies. Really, we're trying to balance district and community priorities related to safety, equity, efficiency, and student educational and socio-emotional outcomes. So I would like to say too that this work ties into the boundary work, because we need to make sure that our new plan aligns with the new boundaries, right? It's going to build on extensive research and scenario-based planning, as well as engagement with the community. It's going to include the budget and detailed communication strategy. I'll get to all the dates, the highlights here towards the end. Ryan, you could go to the next one. So over the summer, we started research and scenario analysis. We also had an internal work group. So the internal staff work group consisted of mostly principals, because the majority of folks are off in the summertime. So even getting people together over the summer to have the internal work groups was a challenge, but we did have people attend. And we got some good feedback there. We also looked at school bell times and how changes could open up options for us, primarily with regards to high school sport transportation that we have to contract the majority of those sports trips right now. We're looking at different bell times that could save us a lot of money and also allow us to run more trips in-house. We did meet with Metro to begin exploring possible options for expanding our partnership to include middle school students. I'd like to say we are exploring all options at this time. Nothing is set in stone. We're just trying to see, open up everything we possibly can at this point to see what the best option would be. And additional engagements needed to determine ideal walking distances for students and areas that should be treated as hazard zones. So with this work, it's such a big undertaking. We're looking at walking distances, hazard zones, school bell times, boundaries. All of this is part of the big puzzle that we need to figure out how to put together. And there is a lot of work that goes into that. Next, Ryan. So really the public engagement piece is essential for us to develop a well-designed plan. We want to make sure that, the public feels like they have a lot of input and that, everybody gets a say in how this is gonna go. We plan to use a variety of methods to engage our community and gather input on challenges and opportunities from staff, students, and parents. And it may include incorporating discussion of the transportation issues into the board's planned engagement sessions in October. We're also going to be utilizing surveys to send out to families as well for this initiative. Next drawing. So our goal is to have the draft plan ready for the board and community input by early of January 2026. So by the end of September, we expect to have the surveys sent out to families. By the end of October, we expect to be able to analyze those survey results and combine all of our information into a working document. By the end of December, we hope to finish engagement with board committees on the plan. Middle of January, January 13th, we're going to have the first reading of the proposal to the full board. January 27th, second reading of the proposal, and by March 1st, we hope to have the timeline for implementation completed. So that's a ton of information in a short span of time. But I am very excited about this initiative. Portland's population is changing, and we still have the same transportation model from, I think, 20 years ago or so. So a lot of needs have changed, and I think that this initiative is going to really allow us to better serve the community. So with that being said, open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Ben. I also just want to acknowledge that Board Member Sawtell has joined us. Welcome, Board Member Sawtell. And just to confirm, Dr. Scallon, would you like us to do questions now or, okay, yeah, super. So I will take a beat and a sip of water and I'll see who would like to ask the first question. I certainly can. But again, I just want to thank you for all this information. It's really exciting. I guess I have one question and then one area that I think that I would love to see focus on. So my question has to do with in terms of, I know you said that the work at this point is not to necessarily have middle schoolers do Metro, but it's one of the myriad options on the table that's being explored. I am curious what the feedback has been in terms of high schoolers riding Metro and what opportunities or challenges might already be known quantities. Obviously, you know, there's a distinction in terms of age and grade level, but is there anything from the existing set of experiences with Metro that rises to the top of your mind in terms of, oh, well, this is great and we would want to continue this, or this is an area where we already know we would have a challenge?
Yeah, so I mean, we haven't dug into that a ton just yet. So basically it's kind of word of mouth from what I've heard, and also from the internal work groups that we had over the summer. From a high school perspective, sorry, sirens are going by. There we go. From the internal work groups that we had over the summer, the feedback from the principals at the middle school level was that we had, I think, Amy Marks worked in Boston, and who's the other one, worked in, I think, New York, but both of them utilized the Metro for middle schoolers, and they didn't have anything but good things to say. From a high school perspective, I can tell you that it's only word of mouth at this point, but like the people that I know who have high schoolers that rode the Metro, they were so excited because instead of having to drive their kids have a bus pass and they can just use the Metro if they want to go downtown on a weekend.
Yeah.
They go downtown on the weekend.
Yeah. There
is a lot of work to be done to even consider that as an option at this point, because it's not the city of Portland does not quite have the public infrastructure, public transit setup that's been ingrained in the culture of larger cities. It's somewhat new. So, like I said, we met with Metro. Pretty much what they're doing for us now is they're just looking at the routes and seeing how they might be able to help us, but we're just exploring everything at the moment.
Early days, early days.
Yes. Very good.
Superintendent Scallon, did you have something to add into that?
Yeah, I'll add in two pieces that we heard from high school students during
Yeah.
our listening sessions last spring, which is one that the routes, they would love some adjustments in routes, just to make it a little more convenient for students. And so as we think about even younger students having route availability is one. And then second is the number of buses and the timing of them is a second one that we would want to look at increasing, because even now our high school students talk about the fact that there's limited time for the routes and they can be pretty full.
Yeah.
And so both of those are pieces that we would want Metro to tackle before we consider putting more riders on them.
Yep. Thank you. Board Member Opperman, did you have something to add to the Metro part of the conversation?
Yes, I was with the same meetings that Dr. Ryan was. And I heard the same comments. There's sometimes some concerns about other people that look odd on the bus from students. I think their protected status of sorts from the real world. But I think Portland students certainly have less of that issue. And having, as I've said many, many times, having my children, boys, in 6th grade through 8th grade take the Metro from basically USM to Deering and to Lincoln Middle School, it was smooth. And as far as concerns, I think it was more concerns about the high schoolers on it, being as a 6th grader being a little stressed about being around big kids as opposed to anybody else. But that was that piece. But I have some questions and some other things.
Okay, so I had one other comment to make, and then I'll go back to you. So I had my Metro question, and now just a general plug for I would be so excited to hear about any opportunities as the work unfolds to incorporate things like walking school buses and opportunities for community engagement so that groups of kids can like ride their bikes together and things like that, which I mean I completely understand. I mean that takes it's not free to have a grown-up assigned to facilitate that. But just thinking about creative ways to take some of the pressure off of routes and actual buses with engines and things like that. And also, the social emotional component of getting the opportunity to move your body at the end of the day and, process all of the things that have happened to you. I know for me that's helpful. So I would encourage the team to think creatively about things like that. I, for one, would be in full support of that. Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Thank you.
So can I chime in there real
yes,
quick?
of course, of
Yeah,
course.
So I'm not going to take full credit for this because my wife came up with the idea, but I was talking to her about walk zones and hazard zones and whatnot. She had the great idea because right now we have basically the majority of Reiki and East End live within the walking zone, but it's considered a hazard zone because of streets and things like that that they have to cross. She was like, why don't you try and work with the city to paint the paw prints for each school from those areas where all the kids are to create those designated walk zones. So you'd have, little paw prints that would lead everybody to a generalized spot and they'd all walk together. And then we'd have crossing guards set at the busy intersections to be able to cross the students. So definitely thinking of those options too. But I thought it was kind of cute with the little paw prints on the sidewalk.
Totally.
Yeah.
Love the creative problem solving.
Yeah.
Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
On the idea of crossing zones and crossing dangerous streets, I know that the university has been very careful to have multiple flashing lights so there people can cross from point A to point B, even though,
Mhm.
you know, over the bridge, we don't have that for King students going over to do activities over in the Oaks. So I wondered, that being a streets and sidewalk thing, another thing the city might be doing and involved in, is a thought as well. In addition to the crossing guards, because I think what the bus drivers, if I'm correct, they still have difficulty with having flashing lights on and people zipping by them.
Yeah.
Even though that's been out and about discussed. I had a question, two, just a teeny little questions on, how is are the tags, the scan cards going? For the kids? I mean, as a logistic
They're
kind of thing, how many have we lost so far?
0.
Yay!
Yeah, so it's been going great. And I think if anything, it just makes drivers so much more aware of the kindergarten and pre-K students. They've been coming in, and we had to send out the file with all kindergarten and pre-K students back in July to get them here for the start of the year. So there's been enrollments and whatnot since then. So anytime they have a student who doesn't have a card, they come to me and I assign one to them. So it's all done in-house also. But it's going excellent. I think the drivers actually really enjoy it as a peace of mind as well.
Good. And parents are showing up reasonably well at the other end, or whomever is supposed to meet them.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
always a concern. The other thing I had, of course, is the question that my neighborhood has to be at the bus stop at 7:10 in the morning, which means you've got to get
Mhm.
first grader up at a time to get dressed, to be awake and have breakfast by 7:10, 7:15.
Yeah, it's early.
It is early. So how are the bus, I mean, there's two sets of buses running, and is it going smoothly? Is the second group getting it well? Are they getting off? Um, Pick up the second round going all right? I mean, that sometimes is a difficulty. Or how are
Uh,
we still kind of working the kinks?
do you mean route timing,
Mm,
basically?
yes, so
There's yeah, we're working out some of the kinks right now. There's only really one route that we need to figure out, which is Route 97. Everything else has been straightened out. The hard part is that the software doesn't judge traffic in Portland. So for example, that route, it does well until it gets to Eben Hill for Row School. The transition going from basically Presumpscot School to Row at, the middle of rush hour, software judged it for 13 minutes. The actual time is like 35. So, as we work that stuff out, it's just items that you can't tell until someone starts driving what it's actually going to be. And there's actually also going to be a major construction project on Brighton Ave all the way down to King this year. So, yeah, we need to figure out something with that route. We have an idea of what we're going to do with it. So, it's not severely delayed, but like 10 minutes, maybe.
I think my concern is, and this is, you will help however it can be, is we can figure out a way to fix the start times. I think,
Yeah,
I think looking at what to do with middle school
yeah,
really affects 6-year-olds.
yeah,
Interestingly enough, that's
yeah,
so as we look at sixth graders, compare them to six-year-olds, it's a thought. Okay, but anyway, really good stuff. Interested to
yeah.
know who's going to be on the committee ultimately for working the long-term setup.
For the external
Yes.
committee, hasn't been determined just yet. We're planning on getting the surveys out and then forming the committee as well, a little bit after that.
I hope if you need any help talking to Metro or city, I mean, certainly we do it through the usual rounds, but we can also get some muscle going.
Yeah,
if you
yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, very exciting. Big bucket of work. That committee's going to have their work cut out for them, and
Yes.
it will be hugely helpful. Thank you so much, Ben. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
I
Thank you.
think next up is Lisa with a finance update.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. So just want to start with the staffing update. We have filled one of our vacancies, which is Director of Grants, who joined last week, Matt Dubell. And then we have a purchasing manager who is set to start at the end of the month. And so then we will be back to full capacity at that point. So if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, there we go. So we wanted to start out with just kind of a little bit of a deeper dive into what we completed in terms of work over the last kind of 6 months, and then we'll go into what our plans are for the year. So we really spent a lot of time documenting SOPs and strengthening our controls documentation. So what that means is really we've created documentation around cash receipts, payroll, purchasing cards, and student activity accounts. Many of those things address audit feedback that we got in the various, whether it was the annual audit or federal grant audits. We also reviewed all Munis and ADP permissions to ensure that there was appropriate segregation of duty between different roles, as well as role appropriateness, again, to address some audit feedback that we had gotten in that space. We set up paid family and medical leave reporting and payments. That's been running since January. And then all grants, we've moved them from quarterly to monthly reimbursement invoicing to the state, so we get more timely reimbursements. And we've written payroll SOPs to ensure that we don't have, if we do have a staff transition, that we don't again find ourselves in a space where nobody knows how to run payroll. Next slide, please. We had some learnings from when we implemented ADP around how the cost center structure was implemented. What we were finding is that we weren't getting employees to the accurate accounts in our ledger, and we were spending roughly 3 days every other week to actually post the payrolls to our ledger. So we went back and rethought that cost center structure and re-implemented a new procedure in ADP and moved all employees to that. With that, we're down to about a 4-hour payroll post, which is a 16-hour savings every other week. And we've done considerable reduction in issues. So we went from having about 2,000 errors that had to be solved every single time we posted payroll. The last one we were at less than 50. So that's a significant win for our team that'll open time up for other things. In addition, we've put in place more robust payroll validation and review process, which has really brought the number of tickets that we are getting from employees saying they weren't paid right down in volume. We did some automation and some reporting in ADP around making sure that the system could, without human intervention, calculate the eligible main PERS earnings and their contributions. So the system is actually doing that for us. We've gone through multiple cycles where we've tested it to ensure that it's working 100% of the time. All main PERS reporting has been caught up for teachers and PLD plans. Well, that means we've submitted everything to main PERS. They still have to actually process all of that on their side as well. So it hasn't yet hit employee accounts, but we would anticipate that happening soon. We're working very closely with them to make sure that that happens. We've also seen some delays in reconciling pre-2023 errors in main PERS, and that's really just due to the main PERS team's capacity. All right, if you can go to the next slide. So for the school year 25-26, we are going to be focused on 4 areas within the finance team. One is just ensuring compliance with all local, state, and federal laws and requirements. Second is continuing to address audit feedback so that, as we've said before, the audit is always a year behind, right? So they've just started the annual audit for this year, but that's for looking at FY25. So really this year we want to focus on addressing all that feedback so that next year's audit that happens in FY27 for FY26 will be much cleaner. Third, we want to increase efficiency of our processes and systems. And lastly, we want to increase support to the broader PPS community. If we're going to do all that while still maintaining the regular day-to-day financial management for the district. Next slide, please. So in the compliance space, the things that we're focusing on is driving earlier starts to the annual cycles. So things like W-2s and other annual tax statements, we're going to start in October versus January last year to ensure that we have more time to get that right. Quarterly filings, we've actually outsourced to ADP. They're doing that work for us to submit those filings, but we have arranged with ADP to get error reports a month ahead of each of those filings so that we're just getting ahead of any inaccuracies that could impact them. We are focusing on cleaning up old discrepancies within our funds to make sure that we have an accurate balance and then having a monthly reconciliation going forward. Lastly, it's come to our attention that over the years, our legal name has not always been used consistently. So the legal name is Portland Public Schools, but what we've found is that some of our federal tax documentation says Portland School Department or Portland School District. That discrepancy in naming is causing us some issues, and so we are taking the time now to reach out to all of those agencies and make sure that our name is accurate across everything. All right. In the efficiency space, we're really going to focus this year on purchasing and grants. So there is a required time and effort certification for federal funds that we are putting in place a better process for and making sure that we actually catch that up and do it every 6 months as required by the state. Secondly, we're going to implement 2 new modules in Munis, one for purchasing cards and one for student activity accounts. This one will both improve our processes, but it also addresses annual audit feedback that we've had around insufficient approvals for the P cards and not having a significant enough oversight of cash receipts and expenditures on those student activity accounts. And then third, we're going to take a look at equipment inventory processes across the district and our purchasing guidelines policies to address some feedback from the recent audit for the special ed grants. All right. In the system improvement space, we are going to do some work around payroll. So we started with fixing how salaried employees are scheduled in ADP. And we're working on ensuring that we issue healthcare payments to the state for grant-funded teaching staff. We're required by law to submit 2.99% to the state if we have a teaching staff that is grant-funded to contribute toward their healthcare at retirement. So we need to put a process in place to ensure that that happens on a monthly basis. In the second half of the year, we're going to focus on setting up some automated functionality in ADP around leaves and sick bank usage. That's all manual today between the HR and the payroll team, so we want to automate that. ADP has that functionality, we're just not using it today. The other issue we want to focus on is solving this idea of employees with 2 jobs in ADP, which is not something the system is currently set up to handle, but it is an issue for us, particularly in summer school. So we want to have that in place before next summer. We're also working to create efficient and consistent grant management practices across the district. And then we will work on enhancing the budget process as well, which aligns to the strategic plan 5.3. And then lastly, in terms of supporting the broader community, we are going to set up a rhythm of monthly or quarterly meetings with every department in school to review their expense versus budget. And that will give us also more face time with those groups to be able to answer questions, provide training. In general, we're also just working on increasing the frequency of communication and training that the finance team provides to the broader organization. And we are increasing documentation, both how-tos for the kind of the broader community to reference, and then also internal documentation for finance so that we don't have any kind of knowledge loss if we have a team member depart. All right. So that was actually kind of the end of our plans for the year. It's a lot of work for the team to undertake, and I will see if there's any questions.
Yes, that was a lot. Thank you, Lisa. Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Oh, I'm impressed. I think I keep saying, oh yes, I remember that problem 3 years ago, that other problem 3 years ago, and I really like I was trying to figure out what the extended effort was earlier on in one of your slides, and I think talking to people and helping them, because as a person who is at different times in her life absolutely scared of a spreadsheet. Not so much anymore, but there was time. And it's like, what do you do? And so if you're out there holding a few hands, it will be really, really good. But as long as you don't overwork yourselves, I mean, that's a piece of it. I think who has oversight over main PERS? I mean, it looks like you're going to have to do the oversight, but somebody else must be doing the oversight of main PERS. Who's supposed to? Do you know?
I mean, it does fall within the finance team to monitor that work.
For you to monitor how well they do their work. I just wondered if in general they do work for lots of different groups. Somebody must be monitoring them.
Oh, I see.
The
Yes.
other side. I just wondering. I mean, if they're having issues, maybe somebody needs to go and help them from the other side, and save some work on your back and your team. Looks like you have a big team, and you're doing a lot of that crossover, so that, like you said, the redundancy in case of emergencies.
Right. And we're working close with main PERS to kind of help with any questions they may have, and reviewing data for them to make it go as fast as we can. But definitely they have limited capacity on their side as well. And we've submitted, over a year's worth of reports to them, so that they'll need a little effort to catch up as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your hard work, your teams. I'm glad you have a full team.
I do see you, Board Member Sato, but it looks like Superintendent Scallon is trying to say something. So go ahead.
Yeah, if I can just jump in a little bit, Board Member Opperman, to your question. Main PERS has a board that has a range of stakeholders on it, including people who represent staff or members from districts. And so they do have a board. I think the biggest challenge is that their system is really quite antiquated. They're going through a process right now of updating their system. And that's going to be sort of a 3-year project for them before it's fully online. And so what's happening is, we've talked before about how hard it is to report to main PERS, and especially for our system that is as complex as ours. And so now you add on to it the layer of what main PERS is doing is, when they're doing the review of individuals pre-2023, is they're not just putting in new data, but they're having to update data, which the system was never designed to do. And so that process is time consuming. And what they've seen is that they need to continue to think about how they do that work, including some potential changes on their side to just make it more efficient. They have committed to doing 100 employee reviews each week. And right now they are closer to 80 in a month. And so that is not a piece with it's a PPS side or a Barry Dunn side, but it's the complexity of the updates on their side. And so we have had Barry Dunn work to make a spreadsheet that's easier for them to enter. We've done a number of things. The work group that we still have at the district level, that includes finance staff, so Lisa, myself, as well as members of our union, represented by Carrie Dowdy, the president. It also has Barry Dunn staff and Maine Purse staff still meet on a weekly basis. And this is an ongoing topic. And I think it was 2 weeks ago that Carrie Dowdy and I went up and met with the president of Maine Purse to express just concerns about the pace of the review and problem solve collectively about how we could improve it.
Well, that's the question, excuse for my follow-up on that one, is that we pay Barry Dunn a lot of money every year so far. And you anticipate that might have to continue because of PERS?
Yeah, process is taking longer because of the process on the Maine Purse side
So
than
that's my
anticipated.
concern is,
Yep.
I'm glad you're talking to the president, figure out their side's got to do something faster than us or help us with our pay. That's
Yeah,
anyway.
and they recognize that as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Board Member Sawtelle, go ahead.
Hi, Lisa, I wish I'd taken a screenshot because I wrote stuff down and now I can't 100% remember what it was referring to. Did you say previously there were sometimes as many as 2,000 errors per payroll cycle? And now you're down to 50?
Not employee errors. So it was errors when we tried to actually post the payroll to our general ledger. So it was really on the accounting side. We would have, 2,000 errors where it come through with accounts that didn't actually exist, for example. And so we've solved that and brought it down below 50.
Okay, great. I heard from a couple teachers with the last payroll that they felt like there were mistakes and they're just being encouraged to fill out tickets if they think their payroll is incorrect. So when they do that, do individuals in your department just pull those tickets and try to resolve them one at a time? Or what happens to those tickets once staff members fill them out?
Yeah, once they fill the ticket in, my team gets that ticket and we review their individual scenario, and we may resolve it, we may assign it to HR if it needs support from the HR team. But we would track all of those closely to ensure that before the next payroll that they are resolved.
Great. And when I know that you haven't started yet, but you said you had a goal to meet monthly with departments and schools to review expenditures or whatever. So at a school, you meet with the principal, or who do you meet with?
It will be the principal and the lead administrative assistant as they manage all of the financial matters and the purchasing.
Great. And this is just on a kind of personal note. I retired 15 months ago or whatever it was, and I did get a letter from Portland schools outlining what the errors were. I haven't heard a word from the state, and I'm just wondering, like, is that kind of typical? And do people who have retired and just walked away from, like they're no longer connected at all with the Portland schools, are they aware that there are errors? Is it just me? That seems to be like, I don't have any idea what to expect beyond the letter I got from Portland schools.
Yeah, I mean, Portland schools sent a letter to all employees to make them aware of the Maine PERS audit that was underway. Employees are being reviewed in batches. The superintendent can probably speak to how they prioritized who got reviewed first. But as employees are reviewed, then they will get an updated statement from Maine PERS.
Yeah, and I can just jump in here. So the prioritization that has happened for reviewing, which is about 10,000 people that are in the review, about 6,000 of them had Maine PERS or contributed to Maine PERS at one point. So about 4,000 of them will go pretty fast. 6,000 of them take a little bit longer. The prioritization has been first around individuals who have life events that necessitate quicker reviews. So oftentimes that is when a family member or the member themselves passes away. It could be other medical situations as well. Second is around recent retirees. Third is around folks that are asking for estimates, and it sort of works out from there. And so that is how the prioritization is. Board Member Sawtelle, the letter you received in April, the letter from Portland Public Schools detailing all or any of the adjustments that were made to your account based on the joint review. So everybody who gets a review gets that letter. And then MainPERS is supposed to send you a updated member statement. Typically, members only receive that in their birthday month. But when you receive this letter, you should have that same month, based on MainPERS commitment, received an updated member statement. As our letter details what are the individual month-by-month adjustments, the MainPERS letter details the overall contributions and years of service credit. If you didn't receive that, and I say this not just for you, but for anybody who's listening, if you didn't receive that, you can always log into your MainPERS account and receive it, because it is posted there, and so it's readily available. You can also call their help desk, as they have individuals that are helping all members, but also specific to Portland Public Schools.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't receive that. And it's, I mean, I'm not too concerned about it, but I do think it's, you know, it's bound to be very mysterious for people who have no frame of reference at all, you know?
Yeah. Yep, and all the communication is, I mean, we work in partnership with MainPERS, but it's also based on what address we have and what address do they have for the mailing of the letters.
Well, thank you for all of that information and for doing what you and the team can do that's within your control. Really, really appreciate all the efforts there. Any last questions, comments, concerns on finance? Recognizing that it is 6:49 p.m. and we really do need to be wrapped up by 7:25 this evening so that anybody who needs to go to a subsequent meeting can do so. Next up is our policy discussion, and Superintendent Scallon, are you going to be walking us through that?
Happy to. Just give me 1 second.
Super.
So I put up tonight just a slide to generally guide. This is our first time trying this work and seeing how it goes, and so we may adjust as we go. Just so you know, any policy that we look at, before it gets to the board, we'll go through a number of steps. So first, we'll get feedback and input from this committee. Then it goes to our legal advisors at Drummond Woodsum for a legal review, who will then provide recommendations based on both state and federal law, as well as best practices. It would then go to the policy committee, as they are the formal group that would recommend and approve, send to the board any policy changes, and then the board would vote. So in some ways you can think about, for this committee, you have 2 bites at the apple. You have one here to give initial feedback, and then when you vote at the board level. What we thought of in terms of guiding questions for both staff and board, and then board specifically, is what, if any, current challenges are we seeing as a result of this policy? And what adjustments would help us address these challenges? So at that level, you don't need to think about the specific legal piece, but just what, if anything, are we seeing as a challenge that it would be good to address by adding more clarity or additional guidance within the policy? And then specific questions for the board include what, if any, adjustments are needed to align with desired board oversight. So you guys are responsible for policy and providing oversight for the district. So what, if any, adjustments do you want to make based on that? And what, if any, adjustments do you want to make based on your own or the board's policy priorities? And so there's a space there for recommendations. The policies that are going to come forward to you, we did share. I'm going to pull it up real quick. We did share, actually, I'm not going to pull it up. We did share in Diligent a calendar for all of the board policy reviews. And what you'll see there is that we indicated if it was pre-2022, as those are policies that this committee asked to review. The second is if it was staff flagged. And staff flagged could be for a number of reasons. It could be because of specific challenges we're seeing that we want to address. It could also be that it was raised in an audit as a topic, or our legal team has asked us to look at it. So staff flagged is a number of pieces. And then the third column that is indicated on the spreadsheet is board flagged. These are policies that you indicated in discussion in the last 2 committee meetings that you wanted to discuss. And so those are the pieces. And so tonight we have 4. I added one sort of last minute if we get to it, but it is around school property disposal, fiscal accounting and reporting, and fiscal management, which is really the purchasing policy. And so, Chair, I'm not sure, I think probably the best thing to do would be go policy by policy and just
Sure.
ask
Yep.
what, if any, suggestions. And so do you have a preference on where you want to start?
So let's start with policy DI, fiscal management, fiscal accounting and reporting. Board members Opperman or Sawtell, was there anything in here that you wanted to flag for feedback? Board member Opperman, go ahead.
I'm trying to, I would meant to go back and look at the other policies, but it says financial reporting. Is this reporting to the state and to the government, or is this reporting to the board? And because there was something about monthly reporting and quarterly reporting to the board, is that a different policy or R or whatever? I just didn't see it in this. So that was my question. And so that being the question is, you know, I don't see anything wrong with this particular one. I don't know what you all might.
Yeah, and so you're talking about policy DI, correct?
I'm looking at DI.
Yeah.
Right in front of me. I make sure
Yeah.
at least I can refer to it. And it, you know, it talking about what the responsibilities are for maintaining records and things like that. And it also said financial reports. And I'm questioning is this the financial reports to the board?
All required financial reports.
All
okay.
required financial reports. Do we have, and the question I have is, and maybe you know this better than I, when do we have those reports to the board? And is that a different, do you know which one it is?
So, Lisa and Superintendent Scallon, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding of this policy is that it's designed to sort of set out basically a container of, you know, who's doing what, and that it would, the specifics around timing and things like that would live someplace else. And the intent of DI is to basically say all required financial reports to be defined outside of this policy in terms of what the all and what the requirements are. That DI is essentially intended to set that broader umbrella statement of who's doing what. Is that correct?
That is correct. And Board Member Opperman, some of the specifics you refer to, not all of them, but some of them are in policy DIC.
Okay.
We did split these here just in response to the fact that it was our first time and we want to tackle too many.
That's fine.
And the finance committee, or not the finance, the policy committee is taking up these in October. And so I wanted to make sure we got any and all feedback you had prior to Drummond Woodsum completing their legal review.
Super. Anything else on DI before we move to, should we do DJ and then DJR sort of together?
That sounds great. Can I just add one piece on DI
Yes.
that I would suggest?
Yes.
Is you will see this in actually two of the policies here tonight, is that there's different reference to the position of Chief Financial Officer. In fact, Chair Biden, I think you mentioned this in one of the previous. My
Yes.
suggestion is that instead of referring to a title, we
Mhm.
refer to a group of responsibilities.
Mhm.
And so actually just lowercasing it to the
Wow.
Chief Financial Officer may be
Yeah.
a way to make it universal.
Whatever their title may be at the time. Right. Right.
Yeah.
I went in quickly earlier today to see if there was like a definitions,
Mhm.
when we say CFO, we mean, and I was not finding anything that sort of met that. Okay. All right. So we'll take your
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
Okay. Thank you for that. And also, I mean, I made a note of just throughout the terminology, consistency, this, as we've seen in other policies, school committee needs to be changed, things like that. I'm assuming that, that sort of, that level of review is not the granularity you're looking for here, and the policy committee is going to be caring for that, correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. Okay, DJR, here we go. Board members Opperman and Sawtell, did you make any notes about these? I will say that I made a note of in policy DJ on purchasing. I noticed that the phrasing focused on the best price available. And as my reading was that best price available was intended to be essentially the only criteria for choosing a vendor in the procurement process. I may have misunderstood that, but Lisa, I would welcome your insight about this. I want to make sure that when purchasing decisions are being made, staff is not limited to just whatever's cheapest. I want to make sure that staff is empowered to get what is the best value for the district.
Yeah, I mean, we follow as this policy states, we actually follow the city's purchasing requirements, or if it's federally funded, we follow the uniform grant guidance, and neither of those policies require a decision to be made on price alone,
Okay.
and allow for decisions based on availability and value as well as that. So that is built into our SOPs, and so I do think that we could make that clear in this policy.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. The other thing I made a note of in DJR, which I understand is more like the mechanics of how things actually happen. The purchasing code of conduct and the section about conflict of interest, obviously wanting to mitigate that, but there was a section where essentially, if somebody comes forward and says, "Hey, I think this might be a conflict of interest," it's the supervisor who's described as being the person who determines whether it's reasonable and can move forward. And I'm curious about whether that seems to be working well, or if we need to have a higher level of review to really determine whether a potential conflict of interest is actually problematic or not.
Lisa, I don't know if in your time we've actually come across this as an issue.
No, in my 2 years, it's never actually been raised.
Okay. So Superintendent, I don't know if it's come up while you've been here either. I'm curious about whether you feel like that is a non-issue. Like if there is somebody who is looking to make a purchasing decision and there's a potential conflict of interest that comes up, is the person supervisor likely to be the appropriate arbiter of whether that can move forward?
I mean, I think it's a really good point that how our other policies are worded is it would go to superintendent or designee.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this case, that would actually provide a broader umbrella and probably a little bit more of a safeguard.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'd be a really good adjustment. Again, we haven't come across it. And it could be that it becomes their supervisor who's the designee. Based on
Yeah,
information, or it could be that the chief financial officer is, or the purchasing manager. There could be, or an assistant super, that sort of thing. So depending on the scale that we're talking about.
yeah, I'm not sure if this is workable or not, but I think also that like the nature of that type of conversation, is this conflict of interest problematic or not? A couple of people might, having not, not a big committee, but not having to put that decision on one human being might be a smart approach as well. Any other questions, comments, concerns, insights to share or bring forward on DJ and DJR? Board member Opperman, go ahead.
Yeah, in that under purchasing on DJ, purchasing the sentence after you were talking about best price available. I just didn't know if we were following a more updated code of ordinances, because it says here that 2015, is that their latest with all this brouhaha we had about, various orders and rules in the city level. I'm sure you are following them, Ms. Beck, but is that inaccurate? Just, it's a detail. It's kind of like the ones you're saying, school board instead of school committee, but it's one that the policy committee might miss. So that was my thought on that. I don't know what is appropriate. So for that get checked and approved and seen, that would be something, that would be the only thing there. Yeah, that's fine.
Superintendent Scanlon, is that the type of thing that Drummond would also be looking at for us? Super.
Yeah. And I would just also name that for a lot of contracts, right? It's not called out here, but Drummond is part of our process to make sure that we're following practice, et cetera. So, but yes, in terms of policy end, yes, one of their reviews will be to confirm that the December 7th, 2015 is correct, or if it needs to be updated.
It's a picky thing, sorry.
No, it's perfect.
Super. Okay. Policy DN, properties disposal. Any comments, feedback? Board member Sawtelle, go ahead.
Thanks. I just had a couple questions because I didn't understand what things meant, and then I wanted to clarify, because this actually came up when I was teaching high school band. What's the difference between real property and personal property?
Real estate versus just any kind of business property that you're using in the day-to-day district management.
Okay, so great, then I don't care about real property. With musical instruments, so we had a band director, I don't know, 40, my God, it was 40 years ago. Friends of mine was student teaching at Portland 44 years ago. And he was a tuba player and he bought a bunch of tubas. Tuba's not that desirable an instrument today. So I ended up with half a dozen really expensive tubas, and it was not clear how we could. I finally found someone, and we sort of worked within the trade-in clause there, and he took the tubas and gave us credit toward a whole bunch of. We ended up purchasing violins from him. We were trading, but I would just like to see when this policy is reviewed, something like that, objects of value. Just make it a little clearer, back in the day, horrifically, band directors used to take instruments to pawn shops. And, a couple decades ago, we went to pawn shops and found all kinds of instruments that were stamped with Portland school serial numbers and stuff. So I know that's kind of a specific thing, but there are probably other, sporting equipment or something that has the same like pretty high dollar value. And I just like to see a little more clarity, especially like, disposed of by competitive bid or by negotiation or public auction or discard. Something, just a little more direction as to what could be done with really expensive equipment. I hope that makes sense.
So Board Member Sawtelle, I actually have a follow-up question. Are you concerned about items of value going out into the community with Portland Public Schools information on it? Are you concerned about items of value being discarded when they shouldn't be? I want to get at like the why, so that we can figure out the best way to address it.
Well, I'm concerned for two reasons. Number one, we have, specifically with music, we have closets full of musical instruments that have sort of gone out of favor. For a while, everybody wanted to play trumpet, and, we had hundreds of trumpets, and then nobody wanted to play trumpet. Everybody wanted to play saxophone, and it's just really hard to go with the trends and avoid just constantly spending money on new instruments. But the other thing is, yes, we were getting a lot of feedback from people in the community, like, oh, you're just throwing this stuff away. Like, I just went to a yard sale and saw a Portland schools trombone there first, at somebody's yard sale. And, that just wasn't great, because people felt like we weren't being careful. And, we certainly have lost track of inventory. It just became kind of impossible. Hundreds of instruments go out to students every year, and yeah, they don't always come back.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
that was my concern. And like I said, I'm sure it's true of, expensive tools at paths or
Right.
whatever.
Scientific equipment.
Yeah.
So for the purposes of providing our collective committee feedback to Drummond as the next process point in this project, Superintendent Scallon, does it make sense to capture that the Finance Committee has a level of concern and a curiosity in terms of how Drummond would recommend that we, within the context of this policy, provide clarity on this issue that Board Member Sawtelle is raising?
Yep. I mean, I'm not trying to be short. I made note of that and will
Yeah.
share that feedback with Drummond.
Okay.
As they try to incorporate it into a policy.
Yeah, and then they can recommend how to address it. Okay.
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I believe that was the last of the policies that we had on the table, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So if my notes are correct, we are now moving into a human resources update.
Yes, and Executive Director Slaybank will provide an update on the personnel and just a preview and answer any questions there. And then tomorrow we're going to ask the board to vote on a issue related to workers' comp. And so we wanted to discuss that with you briefly.
Great.
Great. So obviously you've already seen in the documents, but we do have a couple of things coming forward to the board at our meeting tomorrow around personnel, a handful of probationary teachers, and that of course requires a board vote. There are a number of other positions that are on that board information only document. And then coming forward starting tomorrow, we're also including resignations as part of our board information. So you will see that document as well, which has a handful of resignations, trying to capture those in sort of looking at how to move forward, because now we're in a place where the start dates for people are all over the place and the resignation dates might be all over. So we're just trying to capture people within a window, sort of from the last board meeting or that 2-week window between board meetings. So I don't know if you want me to highlight all of those individual documents, or just kind of tell you what they are, and you can ask any questions if you have about those before I explain the workers' comp piece.
Board Member Opperman, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Do you have some record of the reason for resignation? Are you starting to do those exit interviews or whatever? And yes or no?
Okay, so two separate things, I think. So in terms of reason for resignation, we do sometimes have those. It really depends on if the person has opted to notify us of the reason. Not everyone does. Some people just give the 2 weeks or 30 days or whatever the requirement is contractually, and they may not provide a reason. So I won't go into the reasons for these particular people, but yeah, often we do. Sometimes it's, I mean, I can give you examples of sometimes it's other work or just maybe getting that first paycheck and deciding that the numbers don't quite add up for an individual and their family. So a lot of different reasons that might come across.
But you're gathering that information. Do you keep that information so we have a sense of, so we come to things like contracts and saying, okay, all these people left because of money, or, you know, I mean, or these people left because they were unhappy. We don't have to know the district, the specific individuals, but, you know, instead of just having, oh, I heard about so-and-so and so-and-so here and there, you know, when you get to that point, and it would just be I don't know if it's a pain in the neck to do, probably, but I just thought that might be an interesting thing to know for the future.
No, I appreciate that. And I think I shared, but I'm always unsure of like what context I shared in. So sort of the rollout that we have right now is our focus right here as we move in the fall is these 30, 60, 90-day check-ins with new staff to kind of get a sense of how their onboarding experience has gone between starting with really the application and hiring process in through their first days on their campuses and into the next couple of months. And doing some good check-ins to make sure that they're getting their needs met. And then our goal as we continue to sort of move through the year is to do some randomized stay interviews with employees who are not leaving us, but who have successfully completed a number of years and continue to be an integral part of our organization, and understanding a little bit more about what is at the center of those decisions and what do they love and what keeps them here in Portland, even when there might be other opportunities elsewhere that may pay more or whatever. We think there are people who are driven to stay in Portland specifically, and we want to kind of figure out what that is and harness that a little bit. And then as we go into the midpoint and toward the end of the year, then we're in development of some more formalized exit surveys, sort of two-tiered, one that'll be more of an anonymous data collection with the option, if people wanted to have a more formalized in-person, not anonymous conversation about their experience and their thinking and rationale for leaving us. So that's kind of our plan for rollout for this year.
That sounds great and is really useful and helpful. And as always, appreciate the work that you're doing and your team is doing. It looks like we are ready to move on to the workers' comp discussion. We have 10 minutes left. I have faith in us as a group that we can get through that. So it looks like we're ready to move on to that.
Great. So I can just provide you with a little bit of context for this, but basically we have our workers' comp through MMA, which is MMA. Oh, there's too many abbreviations. MMA, which is Maine Municipal Association. And they have something called the Workers' Compensation Safety Incentive Program, WCSIP. And basically this is just an incentive program for a financial discount if districts sort of make a certain level of commitment to safety in the workplace. And as a result of making these different tier levels of commitment, the district can get a 5%, 7.5%, or 10% credit toward the cost of insurance through workers' compensation. And so we are looking to move just to level tier 1 right now, which is the lowest level tier, but we felt was something that we already really pretty much have the most of the pieces in place and can very easily move to. And with the board's approvals, which is what we're bringing that forward requesting tomorrow night, then we would receive a 5% reduction in our workers' compensation costs. I have asked Gavin Pat and a couple, I know Ryan has asked too. So we've asked Gavin Pat, who's in human resources. He's working with MMA to try to get like a dollar amount for that 5% so that I can report that. So I'm hoping to have that for you tomorrow night. I don't have it tonight because they have not responded with that number yet. And maybe I'll try to connect with finance too, because maybe there's a bill we can kind of look at to determine that 5%. But regardless, it's a savings to the district to go through this process, and this tier 1 is the easiest, and then we'll sort of aspire to tier 2 and tier 3, trying to get to that 10% discount over time.
Could you just give a few sentences on the level of effort the district would have to put into getting to tier 2 and tier 3? I mean, like, it sounds like tier 1's a no-brainer, given that we're almost there already. And tier 3 would be great financially, but it sounds like there's a level of effort involved. Can you just talk a little bit about like the levels of effort that would need to be expended to get there?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but so I'm going to tell you from memory what
Sure.
I got very blurry by like putting my hand up. So tier 1 is things like we require our schools to have safety plans, right? And that we have sort of a district safety plan. We're consolidated in that thinking, right? That would be just sort of a basic tier 1 thing. When you start to move through tier 2 and tier 3, you're really implementing much deeper systems of responsiveness to maybe things that would come up. They'll come through and walk through with us and identify areas of concern that we could work on and fix and tweak to improve our safety, our overall safety rating. So, right now, some of the things that we are like easy fixes, right, would maybe be like, oh, maybe we don't want to have, maybe there's appliances in a classroom and we kind of really need to think about whether we're allowing appliances in classrooms. And so some of those things are easy, not so easy because people really often like to have what they have in their classrooms, but some of those kinds of fixes are things that could be recommendations that if we decided to really move and follow through on, it could improve our safety rating. So they're not things that are illegal necessarily, right? But things that, we want to mitigate the level of risk that the district has. So, I would have to, having broader district-wide safety committees that bring together a group of people to work on recommendations and implementation. Those would be some things that we would want to put together in future years to really just take some deeper looks at what we've got at our school sites and ensuring that everyone can feel safe coming into work and we're not, worried. Obviously, workers' comp is in place because accidents happen, but we want to try to ensure that we've got things in place that reduce the risk. That's up.
Yep.
And I'm also sorry, I'm realizing it's really getting dark, so I'm gonna go like turn on a light in the room that I've.
Okay. For the remaining 5 minutes, yes. I mean, I think that the financial, the 5, 7.5, and 10% credits are great, but then also just keeping our the staff of the district safer that's also a wonderful thing to do. Looking to board members Opperman and Sawtell to see if there's any other comments, questions, or discussion points. Yes, go ahead,
Jump in and ask one
Superintendent.
quick clarifying question? Jennifer, I heard somewhere, and I don't remember if this is 100% accurate, so help me out here, that you actually have to be in tier 1 to move to tier 2, that you can't just jump.
Right, you move through the tiers. So, so this is our starting point, right? And then we can sort of start to plot out and plan how we're going to get to those next levels. And I will, I don't, like I say, I don't have the document at home, so I will grab that document tomorrow so that I can bring that to the board meeting and maybe a little more effectively answer your question. Because, we did talk about it in HR. I had met with them last year and talked a little bit with Helene at the time about what we thought we could do. And I really appreciate Gavin came forward this year and said, I think we're there for tier 1. Like, I think this is an easy win. And now it's about like building out for that tier 2 and that tier 3 in future years. So I think it's great. And, again, overall, we obviously want to minimize the number of injuries that our staff may have in those rare workplace accidents.
Mhm.
So the more we have in place to sort of safeguard against that, the better.
Agreed. Agreed. Just taking a pause. Sometimes I can sort of talk fast and barrel through, so just taking a beat. I'm not seeing any hands or great. So we have gotten through our whole agenda. I want to express my gratitude for everybody's great engagement, all of the efforts of staff to bring us this really helpful, concise, clearly explained information. So much progress is being made, and I am very thankful for all of you. It is 7:22 p.m. So anybody who's going to a subsequent meeting has 8 minutes. I would look for a motion to adjourn at this point. Board Member Opperman, thank you. Looking for a second. Board Member Sawtelle, thank you so much. And show of hands. We are unanimously adjourned at 7:23. Have a lovely evening, everybody. Thank you.